All right. Our makeup is set.
Mm-hmm.
Our hair is all ready. There are no Tide Pods in sight. We are here on Monday, May 9th, the day after Mother's Day. Happy out there to the moms who gave birth to the 4 members of Fish, to the moms who gave birth to all these Fish fans, and to all of the moms who are Fish fans themselves. You juggle life, you juggle careers, you juggle going to see Fish shows. It's an amazing thing, and we are forever indebted to all of the moms out there, including our very own mother of the pod. I don't know. You're not the mom
I
of
don't
the
think
pod.
you.
I don't want to do
right.
that.
I
That was
love
I
pod.
stumbled that into a really bad way, so I apologize. But like our resident mom on HF pod, there's no
There you
good
go.
way to say this.
No, I think that was best.
Is that better? An
That's better.
absolutely amazing mom, Megan. How are you doing? How was your Mother's Day?
Thanks, Brian. That was quite an intro. Thank you, Mom, says
Quite,
Pat Stevenson. It was
quite an intro.
I'm doing
Quite
great.
an intro.
I had a great Mother's Day. I got to do some planting, be outside. People made me quiche. They made me delicious dinner. It was great. Everyone was super sweet. Had some thoughtful gifts. It was a really nice day. So I'm great. I'm doing good. It's Monday. I get to talk to you too. My favorite time of the week. So I'm happy.
Sweet.
This is it. This is it. We are so thankful for you. You've been on HF Pod for like basically 6 months at this point in time.
Wow, that's
And
crazy.
it's been a total joy. We've been doing this. We were doing this weekly. Well, no, we started doing this twice a week, and then we were doing it weekly, and now we're doing it twice a week. And it's been so much fun to spend time with you, dive into Fish, into so many nuances of this band. And it's been excellent. And we're going to do it again here today because we are talking about, I can't believe it, but we've reached the end of the Spring 93 tour. And some would argue we should probably be talking about this show this time next year. But you know what? We're just going to zag and we're going to talk about it here on the 24th anniversary. We will absolutely be doing a deep dive into Spring 93 from a 25th anniversary perspective throughout the spring of next year. But we just had to talk about this show. And maybe we'll talk about it again because this show, can I say this? This show.
Nah,
we'll save it for the actual
You're
content.
wrong.
It's a really good show, right? It's a good show. It's an awesome show. Yeah, that's the last thing I'm going to say about it until we actually get into the show. This is the pre-show segment right here. Let's see, we got Mother's Day. We covered potential thoughts about the show. What else? Oh, Osiris Media on Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe. We put out a bonus episode last week where we talked about our favorite encores, which was a lot of fun. We dove into our favorite encores. Jonathan, you were not able to be in attendance. Do you have a favorite encore that you have seen from Fish?
Oh, yeah. Tell us.
Gosh, I don't know. That I've seen, I see that would require me paying attention and doing research or thinking carefully. I would just say that I always love A Sleeping Monkey. Paige and I both. It's our favorite song that we share. But I do really always love A Sleeping Monkey, especially like a Sleeping Monkey Tweezer reprise. But I also, partially because I know it pisses off a bunch of people, love a Rocky Top. So it doesn't matter to me most of the time what they encore with. I'm staying until the lights are on, and it's all a Fish show. Like, I think the encore is kind of a weird thing because we know it's going to happen. Planned encores are kind of odd. I kind of respect Jerry Garcia Band. Jerry would not do encores. He would just play a show, 2 sets. All right, thank you. He's out. Good luck getting him out for an encore. But if he did, it would have been special. Actually, my favorite encore is the second encore, the double, when they come back out. So we got that in Hampton, and was that 18?
Very rare.
There you go. Yes, because that's rare. The unplanned one.
Yeah.
That's really special. They're all good. No bad ones, except for the bad ones. But those are the good ones.
So you're okay if they play just Rocky Top?
Sure, why not?
Something else? Okay.
I mean, presumably, I just saw two sets of fish. So
Mhm.
what? If they want to throw out a Rocky Top? Okay, cool.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I saw the War on Drugs back in February, and they did this thing towards the end of the set where Adam just kind of started strumming some chords, and you could hear he was going into the next song. I think it was Eyes to the Wind. And he was like, "We got about 3 more songs. We're not going to do that thing where we walk off stage and then you clap a little bit and we come back on stage and we all
Right.
pretend." He was like, "We got to get to St. Louis, or not St. Louis. We got to get to Salt Lake City by tomorrow morning. So we're not going to do an encore for you. So just imagine we've walked off stage. We just came back on stage and this is the encore." And it
And
was a
everybody
great
goes
like
wild,
recognition.
right?
Everybody goes crazy right there because it's an oddity in a show. It is an interesting thing that like it's become just this expected. We're gonna walk off stage. People don't even clap anymore. They just kind of
People
like
are just
sit
like,
down.
wait. I was like, oh, yay, that was a good song. They'll be back. Come
But like,
It's
on.
really
it's like so sad when the set ends. So at least you have that last little piece.
that
Like,
one more thing.
yeah, that one more. It's like that last bite, that you save for yourself. That's like the perfect bite.
At
That's
least,
the encore.
like when the dead would
Perfect
like
bite.
close would not fade away. We'd do the clapping thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that was trite and cheesy but fun, and we did that. But you knew they were coming. You knew they were coming.
There's a
So,
really good video of them doing that in Madison Square Garden. I think it was used for the whatever the 10-part Amazon series was on the
Okay.
dead. And it just like it symbolizes how big an arena rock the Grateful Dead were in the 80s and 90s in the coolest way possible.
Mhm.
And it's cheesy as all hell, but it's also like so is playing in
there
front
was
of a
the
bunch of
fans.
lights
We
and
did
like
that. It's
you
not the
did that.
band that did that. We did
Right.
that because we're
Our
cool.
love will not fade away, even
Wow.
through this highly expected 5-minute encore break. But at the risk of giving away the entire premium episode, I agree with you. A Sleeping Monkey encore, very, very special
Yeah.
thing. I
Classic.
remember getting that at the Meriwether Post show that we saw back in 2015, and it just caps off an incredible night of fish. And you're like, here we are, singing about monkeys on a train, some organs, some Let It Be teases, John Fishman saying some stuff ridiculous. Like, this is it. If you don't get it at this point, you're never going to get it. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, that song
Um,
means they're happy too. That's like I think they play
Yeah.
that when they're happy.
Yeah,
I think so
mean,
too.
you get a little guitar solo with that too. It's a weird ass song. What could be more fish than seeing Sleeping Monkey?
Nothing.
Not much.
I mean, there's about 50 songs that we could say what could be more fish than fill in the
Oh
blank.
yeah,
but Sleepy
you
Monkey
enjoy
is
myself
one of them.
encore would probably be more fish.
That's
but
it. That's it.
That's
So, like we said, please subscribe to Osiris Beat on Apple Podcast. This is a great way to support the show and a great way to hear fun additional content as well as ad-free content. Which, speaking of, we have a couple of sponsors that we want to tell you about, as we always do.
do we know?
Do we?
Sunset Lake CBD's line of smokable hemp products are for the old deadhead. Hi. Or young fish fan searching for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without the paranoid and anxious side effects. With 9 different strains from this year's harvest, there is something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show. The Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All the flowers grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. Even better, Sunset Lake CBD's farm-to-table approach gets you a great pricing on premium CBD flower by shipping directly from their farm to your door. And I just got a whole box of it just the other day, and it came just in a few days. I got a whole array, and it's outstanding. Just smoke one of those pre-rolls, and there's just a point, just a little way into it, where suddenly you're like, huh, but then you're not high, you're not
No, it's the best.
paranoid, you're able to just go back and do the things you need to do while still feeling relieved. I don't know. That's a word I'm going to use. I think that's a real word. So
that's
check
right.
them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com. Use coupon code HFPod for 20% off all products. That's Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown.
Truly relieved. That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
You're never crazy. You're just relieved. It's good. Something that you have to imagine the band felt a little bit walking off stage on May 8th, 1993. Relieved. They'd been on the road for, I think it was 71 shows. So basically just over 3 months.
That was Trey's guess.
That was Trey's guess. I'm going off of Trey's guess. I did
Yeah,
not
let's
count
go with
every
that.
single show.
That way we don't have to
Yeah.
do math.
Yeah, we don't have to do math at this point in time. This tour, I believe, is the longest Fish tour in Fish history. Maybe Fall
Wow.
95 is longer. This goes from February 2nd, 1993, where the band debuts a cover that will become one of their most reliable covers, Loving Cup, as well as by way of debuting Page's Baby Grand Piano, a instrument that will forever change the sound of Fish, forever change the perception in a lot of ways of Fish. That Baby Grand just like adds it's just like a regal aspect to the band that you don't necessarily expect from a, just a little jam band type of thing. I feel like not since Keith Godchow in the 70s had you had a jam band really like showcase a grand piano in this sort of manner. And that changes the way that they sound going into the spring tour that showcases through February, March, and April a band willing to experiment in ways that they hadn't before, picking up in ways on threads that we talk about in our 1992 episodes. And it all kind of weaves to this finale where the band plays Durham, New Hampshire, just down the road from Burlington, just down the road from where they were founded some 10 years earlier. And they play a show for the ages, and a show that's like in so many ways summarizes what they've been working towards since early 1992, I would argue, but also showcases where they're going. Megan, starting with you, what are your thoughts on this 5/8/93 show and like where we find ourselves in Fish history?
I think when you look at 1992, and we've been talking a lot about it, which has been really fun, it's so tight and structured. And by August 1993, they're really like exploring a lot and kind of getting into this like psychedelic jazz space. And I think this show really stuck out to me because I felt like you could hear the space. There's like patience in a lot of the playing that I don't hear in 1992. There's just a willingness to be a little bit, it's not looser, it's just more patient. And I first start to hear it, especially in the first set in this mound. There's just a little bit more kind of availability to each other in it. And it's just, and then it just completely goes in deep when they really start to hit stash. But I think it's really great to hear them play this super high energy set, but then they're also like really listening to each other and stretching it out in a way that sounds new to me and really patient. That's just the word I kept coming back to. Like they're really more patient than I have heard them.
I think that's apt. I want to shout out to Bruce Hornsby for having a grand piano on stage with the Grateful Dead in the very early 90s when he was
Thank you.
filling in some space and bridging the gaps as Vince got up to speed. But yeah, I think Megan, you really hit upon it. This show has the tightness and just ferocity of the spring 93. It has that slightly expanded sound that the piano brings, but it also has a playfulness. And I think it's kind of a release because it's the final show. I think they're really like, here's the bonus, here's the treat, here's the thing. Let's just, what are they going to do now? Let us play tomorrow. Let's just go for it. And it really like at the same time, it also, it's culmination of all of these energies and these, ideas and little tiny things that maybe they didn't explore at length earlier in the tour, and they kind of give them a little bit more legs. And it pays off. It's just a great ripping show.
It also like that idea of this looseness that you're talking about, because there is no show tomorrow. There's no shows until July 15th. They basically got 2 months off. At this point in time, they are not recording an album. You've got to imagine that they're writing the songs for Hoist at this point in time, but they will not be going into the studio until the fall. So it feels in a lot of cases, for the first time since the mid 1980s, the late 1980s, that they're actually going to get a break.
Right.
You know, they've been on tour. You look at 90 and 90, 89 through 91, they're basically on tour for the entire year. 1992, they do this massive spring tour. They go overseas in the summertime, plus play some shows back at home, opening for Santana. They do a pretty big tour in the late part of 1992, but that fall they were recording Rift. They do that New Year's run, and they go back on tour at the start of February, and they do this February through early May tour. It's really just like for 4 years, it's just no holds bars. We're going forward. And, you know, people don't typically think of 1993 Fish of letting up the gas, but by this point, you know, to have the infrastructure in place to tour with a baby grand piano, it's just such a symbol of where the band is at right now. The crew is expanding, this Trey will say. The rigs are expanding. The production is expanding. They're about to tour amphitheaters throughout the summer, which they won't sell all of them out, but they're going to really test themselves with leveling up. And this is really the first time they're allowing themselves like a breath of fresh air. And you hear it in a show that has, it's basically a greatest hit show mashed with a June 1994. Anything can get played at any point and can come in and out of any other song. And that vibe is both something they've been working towards and also something completely new.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the summer and what they're going to do. You know, they play this extensive spring tour, which I have to imagine did pretty well for them to be able to book the small amphitheaters that they booked for the summer. And I gotta imagine, I was thinking as I listened to this that, you know, Fish's their whole thing is built around the fact that we want to come back, right? Their fish really only works because we keep coming back, right? Like if they were any other band, why would you go see them in the summer if you just saw them in the spring? Because you know you're going to hear those 9 songs again, and you know they've built this thing up already at this point that they're like we're going to do bigger, slightly bigger outdoor spaces, and we don't have to sell them all to be successful. But I have to feel I kind of feel like the strength of these shows sold a bunch of tickets for the summer, even if they didn't sell out all those little amphitheaters. Yeah, they're just building and building and building for themselves here.
And they're building their catalog too. I mean, they have put out 3 albums in 3 years at this point, which is like, to your point, Brian, just absolutely so much work. Yeah. And they're touring relentlessly. So like they're not taking any time off. And then they now have this catalog. They have a lot of songs that they can choose from. And I think that's something that you can see in a show like this, where they're kind of going in between songs and just so much more flexibility with their set list, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, they're adding ideas to every single show, and they're not playing a straight set list. And it's something that just like needs to be emphasized over and over again with this band, is like the set list structure of Spring 93 is similar in some ways to the set list structure of Spring 92, but you've got all these new songs that have been added. And at the same time, they're starting to write songs for Hoist. And those songs are going to dominate the spring and summer of 94 and the fall of 1994. And while they're debuting all of those songs and working those songs in the set list, the songs from Billy Breathes are going to be written in the spring of 1995 and debuted in 1995, released in 1996. And at that point, they're going to reinvent their sound, and they're going to write all these songs for Story of the Ghost. And it's just this onward cycle. And all the while, they're not creating a rigid set list that says, we need you to hear these songs at these times. You're getting a show like this that showcases songs from 5-10 years ago and also songs from 3 months ago.
It's pretty incredible if you think about it. Like the fact that they're able to play songs that they're writing and continue to like reinvent old songs and let them breathe. I mean, it takes a lot of dexterity. It's pretty crazy.
They're a pretty cool band.
They're kind of good. I don't know. It's weird.
I think we did it. That's it.
All right.
End of
Thanks.
show.
We end the podcast.
Great show.
So, should we dive into the show? Do we have any
Yes.
other table setting that we want to set here?
I think it's been set.
I think it's been set. So this show begins with 4 songs that, to my ears, really serve as just like your perfect opening course to a show. You get the expansiveness that you talked about in Mound, but like really Chalk Dust, Gula, Rift, Mound, to me, it is extremely tight. It is like they are studio quality versions just dropped in front of a paying audience. And like what we've been talking about, it's such a sign to me of how much time and energy is devoted to their songs at this point in time, which is what allows them to, as we move into the show, just like crack open these songs and find new ideas within them. But like you don't get that without the tightness that they come out here with.
Yeah.
What are you guys thoughts about the opening here?
I think you got it. I mean, they're super agile, super like tight, and just bang, 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 just nail out those first 4 songs. And I mean, Rift is it's kind of a monster shreddy like showcase for everybody. Everybody's got a lot of work to do. I'm just picking one of them, right? And it's intense and well played. Gula it's that, but also it's got this weird, the middle bit. And yeah, these guys are, and then Mound is just funky, odd in the best way. They just, it's a great opener.
Yeah, so much energy. I mean, right out the gate, they just sound like they've been waiting to get on stage for 2 hours, like, just chomping at the bit. I mean, they just come out flying right out. And I feel like the first 4 songs, like you said, amazing. And Mound just really, to me, stuck out. It just sounded so, I don't know, just sounded really good. It's like a really good version. There was moments that were like slower than I remembered it being usually. And just, I guess, such a nice balance after Rift, which is like you were saying, Jonathan, just so driving. It's just really nice to kind of land in this spot of Mound. I think that's like really great setlist construction.
Totally.
It's really wild to me. So they open up with 2 songs off of Nectar and then 2 songs off of Rift. And they give you this, like these kind of throwbacks to where the band has been in the last 2 years. Listening to this show last night and this morning, it's so wild to me that Chalk Dust Torture is now a jam vehicle because there is
Right.
zero hint of it here. Like it is a show opener. It is a, hey,
Totally.
we're here.
It's
we've been
freaking
waiting
Johnny
for
Be Good
hours.
for Fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
Right.
that's awesome. So true.
it is just like, here, let's slam this out. This is what we call rock and roll.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now it's so something else sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like this era, I was thinking about it at one point. I think I was webcasting the Blossom 2015 show where they open up the second set with Chalk Dust. It goes into a deep jam, segues into Tweezer, similar to the MSG version from this last run. But then Tweezer segues into the Lizards. And I was just like, tell any Fish fan in 1993 that these 3 songs are going to open the second set and it's going to be like a 40-minute segment and they're going to be just like blown away by it. Like, of course the Tweezer went 35 minutes, right? No, like it's such a weird, mix of Fish history in a way that, you just would never have predicted. And at this point, Chalk Dust is the perfect opener.
Yeah.
So we move from there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, can we talk about Stash, please?
We can
We've
talk
just
about
been waiting the whole time.
I'm just dancing around
It's
Stash.
the only reason I signed on today, guys. No, that's not really true. Stash,
Jonathan, our
though,
resident Stash freak.
Yes.
is it's just a dope, weird, good, intense Stash. It has a lot in common with a Spring '94 Stash. Actually, it's a little more. It's not. Doesn't quite have that kind of liquidish tone in Trey's guitar that really that he developed in the following year. That's not a technical term. But they bend that and get dissonant and intense, and it's a dozen minutes long before Kung comes in,
Wow.
which is like that's a good and proper stash right there. And then Kung, good weird Kung, and then let's finish stash. God damn it. This is so good. Like, I listened to that 3 times today. I'm telling you. I listened to the whole show today, and I went back to stash twice. It's just on top of trying to catch up on Billy Strings from the weekend. Just so good. So good.
This stash is a wild ride. It's just
Yeah.
we were texting about it over the weekend. It's just off the rails, as you were saying, Jonathan. It really does not stay on track in the best of ways. And the segues between Kung and back into stash and out are just absolutely perfect. I mean, this is a beautiful stash. Perfect example of like what you always say, Jonathan, as goes stash, so goes the show. And I feel like this stash, they must have known, like, okay.
Have I said that? I don't.
I feel like you said
Couple of
that.
times.
Okay.
Couple of times. Only
take
a
it.
couple of times.
It's true, though. It's true.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not wrong.
Mm-mm.
There was always a joke like in mid 3.0 that mid first set, Trey and Mike would meet at the middle of the stage and kind of talk and laugh for, what seemed like 90 seconds. And then they'd play stash, it like felt like they were like talking about like,
Or joy.
yeah. But like
Sorry.
felt like they were talking about like, hey, do we want to bust it out now? Or do we want to wait until later? Hey, do we really want to showcase this? And then, it's like, of course it's stash. It's the middle of the first set. Let's see like how tight we're feeling at this point. Can we expand a little bit? And I think that there's like a definite, it's like Reba in that sense where we're going to play it in a purposeful way, but it also sets a total vibe. And when they're really feeling it, again, the MSG version that happened just a couple weeks ago, like they can just dive into the unknown. Jonathan and I were texting back in late August when they were playing the Shoreline shows, and they play that just brilliant version of Stash. And it was just like the two of us going back and forth being like, oh my God, holy shit, oh my God. And like it says, it's like a picture says 1,000 words. But, I was thinking like, Stash has been outstanding all tour. The 2 songs, and they're featured in the show, that have been monumental jam vehicles throughout the entire tour are Stash and A HFPod Groove. And especially in March and early April, those 2 songs just like went completely off the map and showcase an abstract approach to jamming that the band is going to employ without reservations over the next 2 years, and is going to teach them so much about trust and risk taking and what listening does for them, and what does it mean to play like truly risky music in front of a paying audience. And Stash, I'm not going to go through every single version, I'll spare you all, but there's like
that could take a while.
There's like 17 jam chart versions from 1993 spring 93 alone of Stash, just to list a couple of my favorites. 314.93 from Gunnison, 330.93 from Eugene, 4.3.93 from British Columbia, and 4.5.93 from Seattle. All incredible versions. I would highly, highly recommend listening to all of them. And this is where you really start to get that tour finale feel, where we're going to not only celebrate and relish in the fact that we're off the road starting tomorrow, but also we're going to showcase the best parts of this previous tour, and we're going to preview where we're going. And the Stash, like you said, Jonathan, like it dips into darkness, emerges into Kung, and it's a clear sign of where we're going in August, which is for so many reasons, a revered month in Phish history, and where the band will become, like where they're going to be come April of 1994. Like we're starting to hear the signs of where this band is going to be. It's amazing stuff, and this Stash just it has it all. It's
a shame they botched the glide. Just that one note just could have been so much better.
Thank you,
sorry,
because that is a part of our ongoing series of Phish flaws in otherwise great shows.
No, it's a fucking good glide. I'm just teasing.
It's a really well placed glide.
Yeah, it is, because like you've you've just been somewhere, and then
Yeah.
you get a little breath, and then of course glide is not that simple on the brain either. Glide is, it's light, but it's a little odd, and
Yeah.
A
it's
lot odd.
fun. Okay, it's a lot odd. Depends on,
Weird
it really
time
depends on your
signature,
perspective.
like-
Some of us are already a little odd, so
So it's just right.
yeah.
It's interesting because Glide the t-shirts were based off of Tide. So this
Yeah.
wraps back to our pre-show
Pods,
conversations.
yes,
Just
I had one
it's
of those somewhere.
You
It's
did.
probably
It
in
was
the old
one of my
box.
first like, ooh, I know that brand and that song. This is cool.
Also had the bouncing one that looked
I'm
like
not a
the
noob
dryer
anymore.
sheets thing. I had that. That's definitely in the box under the bed. I'll have to pull that out one of these days. Anyways,
That could be a bonus episode where Jonathan, you go and you show all of your t-shirts.
all my
from
old
before.
t-shirts.
That would be so
My
awesome.
wife
Just
would
me.
be so unhappy with me pulling those out.
I worked at a sandwich shop in college and I came in wearing a McConnell's shirt with the McDonald's M, and they were like, you need to go home and change your shirt. And I was like, it's not McDonald's. I'm talking about fish. And they're like, you need to go home and change
You
your
got
shirt.
no.
Like, wait, you're a fish fan? Okay, you really need to go home.
You need to go home and
Um,
shower
You're
too.
fired.
So we get Glide. We get a really beautiful My Friend. This was at a time when they were playing My Friend with the acoustic guitar open, which I get why they don't do it anymore, but like, just
I
Come
love
on.
it
the
so
aesthetics
much.
of it, like that
It's the
60
21st
seconds.
century. It's okay. It's easy to play an acoustic guitar on stage now. Again,
Mhm.
please.
This is
Please.
true.
It's so
Please.
beautiful.
Yeah, and the ending was a little different, right? Like during the MIFE as they kind of transition towards and the get ready to go to Reba. It's a slight variation on the ending.
Yeah, it definitely
You guys heard
like
that, right?
it's a little spooky.
Yeah,
And it kind of fades into Reba in a really cool way. And it's like one of those just little nuggets that like showcases, like we've been saying, I think Megan, you said at the top, like they're listening to each other and their patience, like they're willing to just let even just like an additional 15 seconds
Mhm.
breathe. And that 15 seconds matters because you're not, and it's got to be so hard to do that for a show that like, who knows how planned out a set list like this is at this point in time. Like this is a peak period where Trey's thinking
Mhm.
about set list evolution and set flow, but like there's no way he could have planned stash Kung stash or like what happens in the second set when we get there. It's just these
For sure.
little moments where you think, I mean, who knows? Maybe. I don't think. But like it's these little moments where you get like they're listening to each other and they're all just allowing a little bit of space.
Mhm.
And that in and of itself is it's worth noting. We move then into Reba, which is a more subdued version of Reba, but my only comment on this was 1993 Rebas, just like chef's kiss. It's just
Yeah. Gorgeous.
it's so
it's
good.
gorgeous.
Gorgeous. That was my note. Just gorgeous. It's just perfect.
That's my note too. I'm kidding. I didn't write notes, but it is lovely. I really enjoy this version.
It's like sucker.
You knew better. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's wild that it's like this might be the most like sneaky Reba that they've ever played in a show because it's bookended by the stash Kung stash and then everything that comes in set two. It's kind of just like Reba's just there and you forget that this song has just complete power whenever it's played in a show.
Yeah, this Reba came on again. So as I said, I listened to the stash a couple extra times, and one of those extra times I let it play, and then suddenly I'm like, oh my god, I'm in this. What is this? It's Reba. Guys, this is just amazing. It was just a beautiful space that I found myself in. I might have left the room for a minute and came back. I don't know what happened. Time slippery. Beautiful Reba.
It butters my biscuit. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a really great way to describe it.
There you go.
Because this isn't like I think about like 14 months in advance, 15 months in advance, 14 months. I don't know. The June 6, 94 Reba is probably my favorite Reba that's ever been played. And that Reba just goes completely off the rails and is just like as experimental as you could almost imagine Reba ever getting. And this is getting us to that sort of point where the band is able to just take that jam segment of the song and just go wherever. You're going to get a version in August 93 as well, like that. This is just like, they're perfect. They're experimenting within the jam, but they're not changing too much, because when you have a jam like Reba, why would you ever, and I love the versions that you mess around with, but like, why would you? You have this beautiful summery jam.
Well,
Yeah,
you
don't
know,
have to.
I'm not one to cite things, Humphreys McGee related things, but Joel Cummins actually has been known to say on Twitter to other people that most Rebas don't jam. It's
Mhm.
really a composed guitar solo,
Mhm.
or a solo over composed portion. It's really at this point where they've really mastered how to play Reba to its
Yeah,
nth degree, so that the next step is obviously to throw the doors wide open and leave the song mid song,
it's a great point.
which they don't do, haven't done that many times, but they really just they've mastered it. They've got a full grasp of the song right here.
Reba is in the category of songs for me that I could hear at every single Fish show and be happy.
Yeah,
It's like,
same. It's so, that moment is just so transcendent always.
When they do the
I would never
nostalgia
get sick of
tour, it'll be in the set every time.
it. Just like the entrance, like the intro, you're like, I'm like,
Mhm.
we're here. We've got, it works like Hood in that sort of manner. Where like the second you hear the wood blocks, the second you hear that boom, 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 like you just know this may not do anything that I haven't heard before, but for the next 14 minutes, I'm in a space that I'm very rarely in, and I'm just going to embrace it.
Yeah, I may have heard all of these notes in this order, but I want to again.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. It's just, yeah, it's like suspended time when you're in that Reba bliss moment. It's perfect.
Yeah. I'm right there. We are just going to keep repeating ourselves until we get to a peak, and then we start whistling, because this conversation about Reba is starting to feel like a Reba jam. So we should move into Trey gives this very heartfelt and yet at the same time comedic shout out to the crew. Paige is playing Charge behind him, but you get this like very clear, almost reflective moment from the stage that is not really associated with early 1990s Fish, where you get this kind of recognition of, wow, we've been on the road for a long time. Our crew has expanded. We have these very core members who have been with us for years at this point in time, who were here with us when we were traveling around in vans, who are the reason why this show goes on. One of the best things, I want to pick my words nicely here. One of the best things that was said at Coventry was when Trey talks about their sound system and talks about people like Paul, and how the band literally could not do what they do on stage without the guys running the sound, without the guys overseeing the monitors. That it's not just that these guys are expert musicians and expert at improvisation, but they have to be able to hear each other crystal clear in the moment to be able to respond and make the kind of music that they make, that frankly we all expect them to make on a night to night basis, which is why we pay all the money to go and see them. And so to shout out these guys, to shout out Kuroda, to shout out the people driving their van, driving their buses at this point in time, for all literally throwing whatever they were doing with their lives into this band however many years ago, and getting everyone to this point where they're going to take a well-earned break and then go back out on the road for this just like career defining tour in a lot of cases. It's a special thing. And listening to this, like it made this feel more like not a tour finale, but like an era finale show for me in some cases.
But it's the beginning of that era.
It's a closing of one door, beginning of the other.
I just like that he then calls out Paige to play Satin Doll, which is
Hilarious.
tells everybody to take up a partner and dance, and it's beautiful. Little Ellington, Strayhorn, Mercer.
And this was the
it.
last Satin Doll to date.
Mm-hmm.
And this version that was played, it had been played as a bust out on April 12th, 1993, which was the first version in 418 shows. The last prior to that being February 25th, 1990. This was only the 18th of all time. And we talked about it, I think, last week. Just bring back the jazz, guys. Just give us
No.
some more jazz, you know?
I'd be totally on board for that.
I think they'd have to rehearse the jazz,
Mhm.
and they
I
know
think
it.
would.
And I don't
They
think
do.
they want to. I think they want to do other stuff, and that's
Yeah.
Yeah,
God
that's a
damn it.
good point. They don't need to look backwards.
Yeah.
Only
Mhm.
forwards. Ever forwards.
Ripping
Any thoughts
Cavern.
on this whipping cavern? That's
Ripping,
basically it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
What about
this
you?
cavern is so spirited. It's like the perfect closer. It's like he stretches out the lyrics. It just has such a vibe.
I definitely noticed the lyrics being stretched out in a way that I really appreciated. That just like felt like that looseness, that comfortable aspect, that patience that we've talked about.
Hmm.
So
Get some air. We'll be back in 20 minutes. Right?
That's
We're
it.
covering everything, so I want to make sure we
We're
get the
covering
set break
everything.
announcement right.
Important.
You know, Cavern is it's like the perfect set one closer in so many ways.
Mhm.
5 minutes just but Cavern is an opener sometimes. Oh man. I love Cavern.
Yeah, very fun.
For a song that is
Another
really
Johnny
only
Be Good
jammed.
in their catalog.
There you go. That's a great call. So we move into set 2. And I want to get a little bit hyperbolic for a second, if you'll allow me the time and the
Brian,
space.
I don't know. You've never done this before. Should we? Is it going to be okay? We're live. Remember?
We're live. I think I can do this. This set flows with the kind of precision and thematic brilliance that is not typically associated with this era and is really where we hear a break from the past. It's in line with the April 92 shows, plus some of the best stuff that we heard throughout March and April, but it feels different.
Mhm.
If you threw this on in the car and you didn't tell your co-pilots what you were playing, I can guarantee you they would guess it's August 93 or July 1994. This set, it sounds a part of the past, but it really sounds a part of the future in a way that listening to it over the last couple of days just almost shocked me to my core. Like I've always known this was a great show, but to like listen to this to my core, to listen to this in preparation to talk about it for an hour or so, I was blown away by how much significance is in this set. Listeners out there, if you agree, please chime in and I'll take it as a win. If you disagree, please chime in and we'll banter with you. It would be great. But I think that this is one of the most important sets within Fish's career. Megan, what say you? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I somewhat right? Am I somewhat wrong? What do you say?
I mean, I hate to be boring, but I think it's really important. I think the things that they're doing in this set that they started to do with the Stash, it's like they went backstage and were like, whatever we just did with Stash, let's do more of that. Like, let's just see where things go. And to have 3 monster songs in a show like Stash, Bowie, and the Mike's Groove, which I guess isn't a song, but that come in and out of different songs most of the time pretty seamlessly. There's a couple jarring reentries, but a lot of the segues are incredible. And to do that within this structure of a constructed set list already is pretty amazing. And I think definitely one of those sets where it sounds like they just don't want to leave the stage.
I agree with that. Which is obvious because I said it also. So we both agree. We're on the same page. Jonathan.
You guys suck at Fish. This is terrible. They come out, it's all slop. They can't agree what song they're going to play. They obviously
That's definitely an argument that I've heard against Fish. Why are they playing this song and now this song? Like,
this
just
is
pick a song.
This is where the "You Ate My Fractal" video comes from, right? It's like, they said we're going to play David Bowie. A minute later, they're like, well, I've been teasing Jessica. Let's tease Jessica a little harder. No. Oh, obviously this is great. I actually really like what you said, Megan, about the idea that they went backstage at set break and they're like, well, we did that shit we did with Stash. Let's open with David Bowie. Just like, or maybe they planned a little more, which is, hey, you know how you've been teasing the little Jessica thing when you were practicing, David? Work that up. Let's see what we can do with it. I don't really know how to play Jessica, but that one bit. Well, that's enough. Maybe that's how they are. I don't know.
I'm so curious. Wouldn't you just
but
love
it's
to know? That would be the best.
It's fucking cool, whatever it is, right?
So good. That Jessica is so good.
Right, and they don't really play Jessica. They're just like tease it and then kind of build a
Idea of
little
it.
like non-Jessica jam off of the Jessica tease, and it's brief. It's like they hardly even played Bowie at first, and then they're like, okay, well now we're gonna play Bowie, and you get like a 10-minute Bowie that rips, and then suddenly they hit the halftime for Have Mercy.
Oh, it's so good, that drop in.
Just so good.
So good.
And you can
It's
just
like
hear it
half
coming,
hour.
and then it drops
Oh
in.
yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
that,
good.
and then when they get done with that, you could just, it's like leans on the gas pedal again. It's like back to finish out David Bowie. Badass version. It's a top version. I don't want to give a number of in which it's grouped, but it's up there. It's an important David Bowie in the canon of David Bowie's. And maybe
its
Fish should sit and
approach-
listen to it again.
We have a list of to-dos for Fish at the end of this episode.
Well, we will be doing a summer 2022 wish list, so keep notes on this. If nothing else, what do we hope Fish does this summer?
You know
Yes,
mine.
David Bowie is basically the only thing left on my wish list since March 2009. So yeah, I'm right there with you. It's also a tactic that hasn't really been utilized much throughout. For as great as the Spring 92 and Spring 93 tour is, we haven't heard the band really employ this idea of we're going to play a song and then we're going to go to another song, but still in this song. And then we're going to go back to this song and we're going to play it. And then we're going to find our way to another song, but it's still kind of in this song. And then we're going to work our way back and conclude. This is something that you can think of the Run Like an Antelope from Tinley Park, released as Live Fish 07. That version really employs this sort of idea. There's a ton of examples throughout August 1993. But then as you get into June, July 94, you think of the OJ show, you think of the Columbus show, you think of the 7/13/94 show from somebody help me out here.
Nope, don't dates.
Play like a bluegrass version of Big Black Furry Creature from Mars. They play
I never
Cavern,
remember
Wilson
that.
Cavern.
That's a good show.
Someone tell me what I'm thinking of, because I can't remember the venue of 7/13/94. But those three shows that like showcase an ability for the band to just turn their songs on their head
Birch?
and weave.
Yeah,
Big Birch, thank you. We will be talking about that show soon. That show, whoo. But you hear the band in a lot of cases experiment within their songs, and it's a tactic that's going to be utilized by a lot of jam bands going forward. And it's really something that Fish pioneered. How do we break our songs down and figure out a way to put this other song in, maybe a cover song, maybe a different version of our own song, and basically turn a set into one long segue that's an unbroken song in a lot of cases. And basically 364 days from this moment where this show's happening, they're going to be doing this through Tweezer in Dallas, Texas, in a way that is going to completely change the band going forward. So you hear a lot of like a precursor of where things are going through this David Bowie that I just love this. It's funny, but it's also, you hear that experimentation that we were talking about in the Stash and Set One. Anything else we need to say about the Bowie? I feel like we could keep talking about the Bowie, but
I think we did it.
I don't want to overdo the Bowie.
Just that it's followed by one of my favorite suites that they do, which is Hoarse, Silent in the Morning, Ice. One of my most favorite things to hear Fish play. And this Horse is just incredible. It's so
Isn't
good.
it extra long?
Is it extended? Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
what I was.
Thank you.
I was wondering. I'm
The-
like,
on the
it's
acoustic
long.
guitar, he's playing
Yeah.
extra stuff before he really does, the riff, which is what he
Yeah.
eventually condensed the song to, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Beautiful.
It's
Mhm.
actually my highlight of the show, best jam of the night. No, I'm kidding, but it's nice.
I was like, wow, really?
But I like it a lot.
Was that in your notes?
Yeah, I made a mental note to tell you guys that. So
You don't have an envelope today? No half an envelope of notes?
Nah.
So yeah, Hoarse, Silent. This is one of my and then we get It's Ice. So we get these three riff songs in a row. I remember when I first was getting into Fish, I have no idea what tape this was. I was listening to it in a friend's car, and they played some Big Jam in the second set, and then Ice or Horse Silent comes on. And it was just really cool to me that they had the ability to slow things down in this manner and play in a really earnest, kind of heartfelt type of way in the middle of the second set, following these like crazy jams. And Horse Silent is a really early example, along with Fast Enough for You, If I Could, Life Boy, of these songs that will allow you like both a breath and like a way to like kind of sit back before whatever's going to come next, but also lyrically and melodically, they kind of tug on the heartstrings in a really good way.
I mean, Silent lyrically is so incredibly powerful, and just the imagery is incredible. I mean, it's really one of their best, I think, ballads as far as like lyrics go. It's so good.
It's pretty.
It's pretty.
That's all. That's all I get for Silent.
That's it.
It's Ice, on the other hand, is cacophonous and intense, and really jerks the chair out from under you. Like, why are you sitting down, anyways? It's
Well, we get Discipline and Manteca teases, two of their, like, they've never fully covered Discipline, but like they've teased it throughout their career. And
Right.
Manteca is like the endless tease in Fish jams at this point in time. And you get this like extended take on It's Ice that would be a set highlight if it weren't kind of just like lumped into this show where everything seems to be creative, and we move into one of the most incredible Squirming Coils. Like Squirming Coil is there with me with Reba
Always good.
as like play
Always.
it note for note, and I will love it because like the whole point of it is that page outro in a lot of cases, even though the rest of the song
the
is
guitar
beautiful.
solo is pretty outstanding.
Guitar solo, yeah, you're right.
You know, come on.
But this is like a moment that it will not become commonplace until 1997. This idea that we're going to play this song that doesn't typically jam, and we're going to take it out into a jam because we just happen to be feeling it right now. And it happens here in a mid-set Squirming Coil in a way that transports you from 1993 to a different era of Fish in such an incredible way.
The swells in this song, like it swells in this just like beautiful, sophisticated way. The playing is so intricate, and then it ends in this like really bluesy riff. This is such a great version of the song.
Yes, it is, and I just was kind of transported by the jam. I was really like, you know, enjoying piano, and then like, there's a band here. What are we doing? I was trying not to study the set list. Obviously, I've seen it before, but I wasn't like looking at it as I listened, and I found that to be very rewarding. Because when they play a show like this, you know, you could know, oh, Big Ball Jam's coming, you know, or you could suddenly find yourself there and you're like, what the, oh, damn, Big Ball Jam, you know. I think that's a better way to arrive at something like that. And I love the way they kind of took off this from this beautiful coil, gave us a little jam, a little other music, before they started, you know, throwing out the balls and getting kind of weird. I feel like Fishman is basically playing like Son of a Mule intro drums on it, though. He's like, it's just playing that to his big ball. But yeah, very cool.
I'm personally very glad they don't play Big Ball Jam anymore.
I'm sure some asshole would steal the balls, so it's best for the best.
It's just not my thing. Too chaotic.
I think that it's one of those songs that song is a loose word, but
Yeah.
you know, it's one of those things in Fish history. It almost serves the same purpose as the Woo, in the sense that it's this sign of the intra communication between the band and their fans in a way
Right.
that you don't get with a lot of other shows. And I'm going to try to pick my words nicely again. As with the Big Ball Jam, I think other examples of intra-band and audience communication have their time and place and could be moved on from. And I'll just say that. I do
Signals,
like
which we did not talk about, are not one of them, and we should bring them back.
150% wish list
Okay.
item.
Sometime, not like a
Well,
lot,
Just
not like 1992
they should
amount.
happen though. Like the at 1995 level. Like every now and
Mm.
then, I want 30,000 people to go no at the same
Yeah,
time.
it shouldn't
during a
have been
possum intro.
1999 the last time that we heard like a all fall down.
Mhm.
I think that
It
might
was
be right.
Philly 99, I think, was the last time that there was an all fall
Wow.
down. And it was the first time in 4 or 5 years at that point in time. And so
Mhm.
like it felt like such a throwback. I think like this Squirming Coil into Big Ball Jam, it's such a fitting moment for where the band is because it is such a clear example of like they're still not totally ready to take this improvisational aspect seriously. Like they just played this incredible jam out of Squirming Coil. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to like temper your statement because I don't entirely disagree, but I completely disagree. They they do take their improvisation seriously, but what they seem to be unprepared, not quite ready to do, is take it out on stage as a
Okay, I think that's fair.
primary act. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's a good point.
They're having fun with this show. They're cutting loose into something that they might do. They rehearse, they improvise. They definitely have been a band that does that for a long time. Even at this point, they just didn't do it on stage because it wasn't what Fish was.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I
Until
like
it
the way you put
was.
that. And it almost feels to me like they've stumbled into this brilliant jamming out of Squirming Coil that nobody was totally prepared for. And so, how do we get back to the show? Well, let's go into a big ball jam and we'll just
Come on,
have a
Brad.
fun little party.
Throw the balls out.
Come on. And it's a great segue. It works really well because there's like a cacophonous feel towards the end of this Squirming Coil, which also hints at Crossroads that's going to come here in a couple of songs. But then we move into Big Ball Jam and we're right back in 93, 94 Fish, where there's a sense of humor around every turn, which is something that is going to fade away come fall 94 when they suddenly say, okay, we can jump off the cliff and just see where things go from a jamming standpoint.
And we don't need to follow large balls around to jam.
No,
We don't do that.
we don't need that. Mike's in Crossroads into Mike's. I wrote in my notes here so that like hyperbolic paragraph that I read at the start of the second set, I just
Great.
wrote about Bowie, Jessica Bowie, Have Mercy, and Bowie, as well as the Mike's Cross-Eyed and Mike's See Above. And my point, just like to reiterate, it's just we're hearing a band that sounds a part of the last 2 years, but
Mhm.
also is starting to sound like what they will become over the next 3 months and then over the next 18 months.
Yeah, jamming in Mike's song. That is so 1994. I love it, especially because it's not simple. And then they still play Hydrogen. That's great. It's great.
So good. The mics, the vocals sound so amazing. They're really clear and strong. And this first jam is so powerful. It's got that like chewing up the scenery type vibes. Like they're just like monster sound. It's so good. The organ is like wailing. I think was this Hammond new at this point. So I think he has a new organ at this point. And I think he's just like wailing on it. And then there's a bit of like a jarring entry back into Mike's after Crossroads, but Crossroads is so good. I mean, they only played it 9 times. I did get to see it twice, though.
Ooh, aren't we fancy?
Wow.
That's pretty badass, actually. That's very cool.
Yeah,
That
it's a good
really
stuff.
is. Yeah, I'm
It's
looking
up
at the Crossroads stats. It's 9 times. This was the debut.
Mhm.
And then you get 197 show gap before 10 11 95, which I've talked about on this podcast before. Please, everyone out there, do yourself a favor, listen to 10 11 95. No one's ever told you about 10 11 95 before me, I promise. I'm the first person to ever tell you about it. And it's an amazing show. Please go and listen to it. You get it 10 25 95, that incredible Minneapolis show with the mics into Breathe. You get it the Fox 95. You get it the Albany show in December 95, which has a very famous You Enjoy Myself. You get Alpine 97 closes out set one, Philly 97, MSG 97, 12/29, and then you get it on 11/28, 98, and then Never Again. And it's a really cool, it's a great classic rock Fish cover. Like, I don't know if they could play it as fast as they did back in the 90s, but I sure would love to hear them try. It works great.
That would be a bust out. That would be awesome.
That'd be incredible. You get I Am Hydrogen, which has Gimme Some Lovin' and Rainy Day Women number 12 and 35 from Page specifically.
Page. Yeah. Well, there's that early bit when they're just kind of setting the tempo before Trey starts playing, where he's just tinkling along and just, yeah, you can hear it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool signals. I mean, I'm sorry, I see the word signals there. Teases. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm one of my favorite moves that the Grateful Dead would make in the 1980s would be to play the wheel into Gimme Some Loving. And
yeah, it's pretty cool.
It has a very slight hint of that. I mean, it's very fishy, but it has very you're just like, could you imagine? But then Rainy Day Women number 12 and 35, kicks off top 5 album of my entire life. So to hear Fish just hinting at Blonde on Blonde era Dylan is In Hydrogen, no less, which is basically written as a tribute to Brian Eno. There's so much in this version of Hydrogen that is wrapped in a bow for me. I love it. Plus, Jonathan gets a hydrogen, which is it. That makes a show right there.
It's a must.
It's got a stash, a Bowie, and a hydrogen. Get about it. Of course, I like the show.
This is your show.
Come on.
It's almost as though we can overlook the flub in Glide.
Almost.
But we can't.
Almost.
We can't.
Nope. That one note
We
would have saved the entire show.
It's a sloppy band.
The worst.
I'm never gonna let it go. I'm just never gonna let it go.
Please don't. You have to have a bit to make a podcast work.
Yeah,
So this is it. We got all of our bits right here in one show. We're basically just covering this set list.
We just have to talk about My Soul and how much you hate it and how much I hate Touche. And
Well, the contradiction of me loving Crossroads but not loving My Soul. I mean, I don't know how to explain myself, but I'm just gonna do it.
Just don't.
Weekapaw Groove.
Don't bother.
Weekapaw Groove has, I said this at the top of the show, or when we talked about Stash, it's had an incredible tour thus far, particularly late March and early April. My favorite version is 4293 from upstate Washington. And here it embraces a stunning fade into Amazing Grace before the latter emerges in a gorgeous jam. This is in line with so much of what we talked about, where they move into a jam and then we move into another song, but again, they almost can't help themselves but find themselves in a brilliant jamming segment. Even though, as we were just talking about, what they're rehearsing backstage is starting to sneak out on stage and they don't 100% know what to do with it. But I thought that this was just a beautiful way to close out the set, the tour. What a cool take on Amazing Grace here. What were your guys' thoughts on this?
This is why Fish is a great American rock band. Because of these kinds of moments. It's just total Americana, but then they have their own spin on it. This jam, I was totally not expecting it. I wasn't looking at the set list when I was listening to this part of the show. I wish I had done that for the rest of the show, Jonathan, because I think that's actually a really great idea when you're listening to some of these older shows you haven't listened to in a while. But I wasn't listening to it, and I just thought, oh, Amazing Grace is going to end. And then it just went into this jam, and I was floored. What is this beautiful piece of music? Loved it.
Yeah, beautiful piece of music is actually the exact correct words here. I will also credit whoever wrote the notes for this jam on fish.net because I want to share those. An absolutely stunning tour closer, which packs the emotional punch of New Year's Eve's Old Lang Syne, A Freakin' Men. You know what? That's pretty good too.
On point.
Yeah.
Yes, description.
It's great. I love that they, landed there, and I love that they took it there to wrap the set. It's badass. I almost said show, but of course we have the obligatory encore.
Is this the secret new bit? Is that Jonathan doesn't like encores?
No, just for
Okay,
today.
sure.
And yeah, it's fucking great. Great way to close the set.
I just want to say we don't share notes before we go live here, but Megan, you couldn't have said it any better. I just want to share my notes because they align with what you say. Weekpog is played underneath Trey creating a truly bizarre and historically Americana mashup. That's it. You said it. I just added to it, but you said it.
Mm-hmm. I
It's
feel like
just
that's
like-
not talked about enough. Like that's why I get really upset that that Fish is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because it's actually offensive. Honestly, they are so American. It's just so, they do so many things that reference and have developed out of great traditions of American music. So I'm going to stop with my soapbox, but I'm glad you agree.
You're not wrong.
Friend of the pod and noted rock and roll music critic Stephen Hayden once wrote that the Grateful Dead took 20th century American music from 1900 to 1950 and consolidated it down into a style of music all their own, and that Fish picked up on that with music from basically 1965 to 1995. And I think that there's a lot to be said about that those two bands figured out a way to take all these disparate styles of music. For the Dead, it's jug bands, it's true like bluegrass, folk music, jazz, and really just like consolidate that into something that sounds like it could have a song at both could have been written in 1915 and 1945 and 1965. And for Fish, you get that with prog, with arena rock, with this kind of weird 70s style jamming that goes along with it. 70s like jazz jamming. Go ahead.
Even their bluegrass is really like more rooted to like J.D. Souther than the Skillet Lickers or whatever. It's not the deep per se. I'm not to say they haven't listened to that stuff, but it has a lot more in common with kind of the 70s newgrass revival, who played all of those same songs
Right.
that those guys learned from the deep cuts as well. So,
which Trey talks about, basically verbatim in Bittersweet Motel when he's talking about the comparisons to the Grateful Dead, and that like he didn't grow up listening to the type of music or experiencing in the moment the type of music that Jerry Garcia did, but that he's writing based on his own experiences while also tapping into like Amazing Grace is an American traditional song, and it's rooted in American history. And to throw that into Weekapog Groove, this comment on Fishnet is the jam chart comment is so spot on. Like it has that feel of Auld Lang Syne where it's warm and it feels as though like the band is tapping into the historic legacy of American music while also just like spinning it around into their own interpretation. That it's amazing. It summarizes the tour in a way that this show did. It's brilliant stuff.
And then they play AC/DC bag.
We get an AC/DC bag that's dedicated to Sean.
Wherever you are.
If you're in the chat, let us know. We've had people in the chat talk to us about shows that they were at that we were not expecting. But this is a great show.
Yeah.
This is a great
there you
show.
go.
It's a great
Done.
show. It's a great show.
Covered.
I want to ask you guys before we go. What do you think? Jonathan, I want to start with you. I want to put you on the spot. What do you think was the impact of the spring 1993 tour on Fish going forward?
Well, it's kind of what I said at the top, right? They played a lot of shows and went to a lot of markets, got in front of a lot of faces. I think that impacted their touring for the next year or 2 years. So insofar as the repeat ticket sales, I think that they had decided to bring the piano on tour so they could really properly get some of the sounds from the new album. And then they capitalized on it and found that Page's broader palette gave them more opportunities. And additionally, that frequency of performing, that playing that many shows in that amount of time, brought them closer together as players, as people, and, justified the expansion of their organization and fueled their future plans. So, I mean, this tour was a big deal for them going into it and coming out of it. And I understand, I'm sure they were excited to be, getting in the bus one last time after this show and heading straight home, because they did. And they had done something and left a mark on their own history, on the music listeners, a small segment, albeit relative to this wide scale, the music listeners of this country, and planted a flag from which they would be going forward.
Meg, how about you?
I mean, what else can I say? That was beautiful. And I totally agree. It's a formative tour. I think that they were really pushing towards this in 1992. And by 93, they have all these songs to choose from when they're crafting set lists. And Trey's really putting a lot of time into that. And they're thinking about composing a show. And they've got this secret language. They've got this growing and really dedicated fan base. And you can see, like you were saying, Jonathan, from all of their practice, they also have this increasingly growing confidence. And I think that that's something you can start to see, and that you can't plan for that. It's just the only thing that comes from working this hard. So I think it is definitely important in their growth.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add, you have the freedom now to approach the summer tour the way that they're about to. Intentionally or not, they're about to dive into a summer tour. We heard it on the Dinner Movie last year from Great Woods from July 1993, the biggest show that they would play to date at that point in time. And you hear it with all the official releases that have come out of August 93. 8/7, 8/14, 8/13, I believe, has been officially released. If not, it's just a soundboard quality, the Murat Show. 8/16, there's another couple in there, but there's a bunch from August 93 that have been officially released. And you hear within those shows this band that is taking this tightness, taking the humor, taking the jamming, and just throwing it on hyperdrive in a way that will completely change them.
Sending it out.
Sending it out. Last question for you all before we close here today. Spring 1993 has a number of great releases already, including 4/14 and 5/3. What would be your wish list item for 3/8 as well? What would be your wish list item for a Phish show from this tour to be released?
I mean, we have to release the Crest Theater, right? We have to release the Gamehen show from 3/22.
Very tight, very good Gamehen show.
Great show, and important to have these Gamehen shows released archivally. That's my first pick.
Can I say The Great Went?
You can. It's not a Spring
25th
93 show.
anniversary is coming up. It's time. I should be pre-ordering that right now.
We're gonna pin this for our summer 2022.
I'm not prepared for any
wish
other
list.
answers. That is the only thing I'm here to ask for.
I have another one from this tour. I want the Eugene show from 3/30, 1993. Great
It's
show.
a very good show.
And a great staff
I
mentioned.
very good stash.
I might say they haven't released the Gunnison, Colorado show, have they?
They have not.
Yeah, I like that one, but I might be the only one who wants to hear that Great Gig in the Sky in a properly mastered soundboard.
So I had the Gunnison show and the Crest Theater show as well. But I came prepared with one more because, you have to have one of your own.
That's who you are, Brian.
That's who I am. 4/2/93, the HFPod Groove I talked about from Bellingham, Washington. The whole show rules, and it's one of those shows that you release it. I remember we covered the HFPod Groove on early episode of Beyond the Pond, and even people like Scotty Bernstein were like, whoa, I've never heard this jam. And I hadn't heard this jam before we decided to cover it. And it's one of those jams, it's one of those shows from this tour that people need to see as official release. And you need to see across Fish Twitter, people just gushing about Spring 93 for a day. It's an important thing that should happen. So
Next year, after they release The Great Went this year,
we will honor your request. I would do it if I had the means. I would release The Great Went for you. I just want you to know that. I can't do anything about it. I would
get on it, Brian.
We have faith in you, Brian. Come on.
I can do a lot of things.
You can.
I've asked a lot of years for $725.99 to get official release, and it hasn't happened yet. So I don't think my word means anything.
Show.
We need The Great Went though. That is going to do it for us here today, unless Fish wants to surprise release The Great Went, and we will then spend the next hour.
I'll check Twitter while we do the ad reads.
We will be back on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. A return guest. We last spoke with good friend of the pod, Ryan Storm, back in late February, where we dove into June 2012, part 1. We are going to conclude the June-July leg of 2012 with Ryan Storm on Wednesday. I cannot wait for that. Ryan is an incredible guest. We've been listening to a ton of 2012 over the last couple of weeks. So much to dive into. So much as the band started to jam. Some really great set lists as they were crossing the single songs played in a tour mark. So we'll see you back here on Wednesday, May 11th for that. Megan, do you want to tell us one more time before we leave about our friends at Sunset Lake?
Sure. Sunset Lake CBD is a majority employee-owned hemp farm, and they're located just outside of Burlington, Vermont, one of my favorite towns to go to. For years, Sunset Lake was a dairy farm. They produced milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And in 2019, they diversified, and they started growing hemp for CBD. Sunset Lake CBD embraces Vermont's tradition for land stewardship by using sustainable and regenerative farming techniques. They build and protect healthy soils. They're 100% pesticide-free. They use minimal tillage and implement cover crops and crop rotations. They also serve as a research farm for the University of Vermont's agronomists to study hemp and inform best industry practices. Jonathan just got a recent order. I'm going to be ordering some more tonight because I'm out of my gummies, and they've really impacted the way that I sleep in a really positive way. I just find that I fall asleep easier and I sleep longer and I don't wake up as much in the middle of the night. So I would highly recommend that you check them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com and use the coupon code HFPod. You get 20% off all your products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown.
We are also sponsored by Cash or Trade, which is the only secondary ticketing marketplace where fans buy, sell, and trade tickets at face value. Such an incredible concept. Fans are able to DM each other before, during, and after a transaction. You can rate and review each other when a transaction is completed. There are no added fees to sell your tickets, and all sales are fully protected by Cash or Trade's Trader Protection Policy, which guarantees your money back. Users can avoid purchase fees with a gold membership subscription. Please visit cashortrade.org to learn more, as well as to use their services. And with that, we will close out here today. Thank you all. Jonathan, there was no Great Went announcement in the meantime?
No, I didn't see it. But you know, they feel free to announce it tomorrow. Would be fine. I would still pre-order it.
I would too.
Also, the next day would also be fine, but not as fine, and so forth.
You probably don't want to compete with the pod coming out tonight. So
that's a fair point.
That's it.
That simple into the Odd Couple jam. I just want that in, like, I want to drop a needle and just.
I see. I don't even need it on vinyl. I just want a proper, like, I want it. I want it. I want the Went Gin on vinyl, actually. Just give me that. Press just one, just press that.
And over again.
Yeah. Okay. I'll stop.
Well, until Fish decides to release The Great Went in official soundboard quality, we will continue our watch by the wall that is the world without a Great Went official release. And we will see you all on Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern to talk the end of leg 1 summer 2012. And just a quick preview. Fishman tucks thrice, and it's only leg 1.
Lots
Thrice.
of talking.
Lots of tucking. We'll see you all then. Have a good one.
Bye,
Bye, all.
everyone.